I hadn't planned on being out this late, and I definitely hadn't planned on standing alone on an empty street with my heart beating too loudly in my chest. The argument with my partner still echoed in my ears, sharp, tired, familiar. It wasn't even about anything specific anymore, it never was these days. It felt like everything we said to each other had turned into a quiet battlefield where every word carried a hidden meaning, and every silence felt heavier than the one before it. Tonight, when I asked a simple question about why they had been distant, they'd snapped, said I was imagining things, and walked away. But I wasn't imagining anything. I could feel the gap growing between us like someone slowly pulling a thread from a sweater. The street stretched in front of me, long and dark, and I felt just as directionless. I kept replaying the last few weeks, my partner leaving the room to take calls, turning their phone over so I couldn't see the screen, coming home later than usual. I tried convincing myself that this was normal, that this was stress, that this was nothing. But in my chest, where honesty lived, I felt the truth quietly pressing against the walls. Something was wrong. Something had changed. When the headlights appeared behind me, I almost waved the car past, but it slowed beside me. The window rolled down, and a taxi driver leaned slightly towards me. His voice was calm, warm, steady in a way that felt grounding. He asked if I needed a lift, and although I hesitated for a moment, I found myself nodding before my mind finished deciding. I opened the door and sat in the back seat, the faint scent of cologne and car freshener mixing into something unexpectedly soothing. He glanced at me through the mirror with eyes that carried a quiet kindness. It didn't feel invasive or curious, just noticing. The car began moving, and for the first few minutes, we didn't speak. I kept my gaze on the passing streetlights, letting each one blur into the next. I thought I could keep my emotions in check, but the silence in the car was gentler than the silence I had left behind at home, and somehow that made everything rise to the surface. The driver cleared his throat softly. He didn't ask what was wrong, didn't pry. He simply asked if I was heading home or somewhere I felt safe. Something about that phrasing, the idea of a place I felt safe, hit me unexpectedly hard. My voice was quieter than I intended when I said, "Just drop me near the main road." I didn't trust my voice enough to say anything more. He nodded, but I saw him glance at me again through the mirror, this time with a little more concern, like he could sense the weight I was carrying even though I hadn't spoken about it. For a moment, I wished my partner had looked at me like that recently, really looked, really seen me. As we drove, the city lights thinned out until the road became quieter. The hum of the engine and the soft sound of the tires on the pavement formed a rhythm that made my thoughts drift. I didn't expect him to stop, but he did. Not abruptly, not strangely, just slowly guiding the taxi to the side of the road under a pool of pale streetlight. For a second, confusion flickered through me. Before I could ask what was wrong, he turned slightly in his seat and spoke gently. "You look like you're carrying too much right now. I just wanted to make sure you're okay before we continue." I wasn't used to someone noticing. I wasn't used to someone pausing anything for me. The moment was still, quiet, filled with a kind of warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. I stared out the window rather than meet his eyes, because I knew if I did, I might break just a little. The night air outside was unmoving, and the world felt narrowed to that one soft moment inside the car. "I'm fine," I whispered, but the words didn't sound convincing even to me. The driver didn't argue. He didn't push. He simply stayed parked for a moment longer, giving me space to breathe, space to gather myself, space that my own partner never seemed to give me anymore. And in that soft pause, something shifted. Not love, not attraction, just the sharp realization of how long it had been since someone genuinely cared whether I was okay. That realization alone felt like the beginning of something I couldn't yet name. The car eased back onto the road, but the atmosphere inside had changed. It felt softer now, like the quiet between us had settled into something almost comforting. I leaned back slightly, letting the cool fabric of the seat steady me. I didn't realize how tightly I'd been holding myself together until that moment, and now that the tension had cracked, everything inside me felt loose and fragile. After a few minutes, the driver spoke again, his voice low and careful. "Sometimes people just need someone to listen. You don't have to tell me anything, but if you want to, I'm here." His words weren't heavy or demanding, they were simply there, like a hand quietly held out in the dark. I stared at the side window, watching blurry shapes pass by, thinking about the silence waiting for me at home. Maybe it was the darkness outside, or maybe it was the way he spoke without any expectation, but my guard slipped. I heard myself saying things I hadn't planned to reveal. I talked about the arguments, the excuses, the nights my partner came home pretending they were exhausted when their eyes told a different story. I spoke about the growing fear inside me, the one whispering that I wasn't enough, that I was being replaced without even knowing by whom. The driver listened without interrupting, without shaking his head, without sighing. He didn't offer cliches or quick fixes. He just let me speak. There was something strangely comforting about sitting behind someone who wasn't looking directly at me but still felt completely present. When I finally fell silent, embarrassed by how much I had shared, he exhaled softly. "You know," he said, "sometimes being with someone doesn't mean they love you the right way. And sometimes strangers notice things your partner should have." His voice had a quiet ache in it, as if he recognized the feeling all too well. That surprised me. I leaned forward a little, curious. Before I could stop myself, I asked, "Has this happened to you too?" He paused, his hands tightening slightly around the steering wheel before loosening again. "Yeah," he admitted. "Someone I trusted. Someone I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. But they made me feel invisible long before they actually left." His words hit me with a force I didn't expect. It wasn't that our stories were the same, but the loneliness in his voice was familiar. Pain recognizes pain, and in that moment, sitting in the dimly lit car, it felt like two people who had been hurt in different ways were suddenly speaking the same language. The road dipped into a quieter stretch where the streetlights became less frequent. The glow flickered across his face through the mirror, highlighting the sincerity in his expression. I felt something shift inside me, not attraction exactly, but an awareness. An awareness of his kindness, his steadiness, his ability to understand the very things I had kept buried. "That kind of hurt stays with you for a long time," he said softly. "It makes you question everything about yourself. But you shouldn't let someone else decide your worth." His voice grew gentler with each word, and I felt a warmth spreading through me, one I hadn't felt in months. Without thinking, my hand slipped slightly forward, as if drawn by some quiet instinct. He noticed. His hand lifted from the gearshift and rested lightly over mine, not gripping, not pulling, just resting there. The gesture was so small, yet it carried something powerful. It wasn't romantic in the dramatic, cinematic way. It was intimate in the softest sense, the kind of intimacy built on understanding rather than desire. I didn't move my hand away. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of things neither of us wanted to say out loud. Full of the quiet, dangerous comfort that happens when two strangers connect at the exact moment their hearts feel most vulnerable. Outside, the night seemed to deepen, wrapping the car in a cocoon of darkness. Inside, everything felt strangely bright, as if someone had turned on a light I didn't know I needed. He withdrew his hand gently, clearing his throat as if grounding himself. "You don't deserve to feel alone like this," he murmured. "No one does." His words lingered between us, settling deep in the space where my self-worth had been slowly fading. And in that moment, I realized the truth I had been avoiding. Someone I loved had stopped choosing me, and a complete stranger had just reminded me how it felt to be seen. It was frightening, and comforting, and quietly life-changing in a way I wasn't ready to name yet. When the taxi finally turned onto my street, a quiet heaviness settled over me. I watched the familiar buildings pass by the window, but none of them felt like home anymore. The car slowed to a gentle stop, the street lights casting soft reflections across the windshield. I didn't move. I just sat there, breathing in the warm, steady air inside the taxi, a place that felt strangely safer than the space I was about to walk into. The driver glanced at me through the rearview mirror, his expression calm and patient. "You can take your time," he said softly. "You don't have to rush." And somehow, those simple words made the silence feel lighter. My shoulders relaxed. My heartbeat steadied. For a moment, the car felt like the only place in the world where someone actually cared to notice how I was feeling. "Thank you," I whispered, though the words felt too small for everything I meant. He nodded gently. "Whatever you're going through, remember you deserve honesty and peace." Honesty, peace, two things I hadn't felt in a long time. I finally opened the door and stepped out. The night air brushed against me, cool and quiet. As I closed the door, he waited a few seconds, making sure I was okay before driving away. When the taxi disappeared around the corner, the street felt a little too still, but not as lonely as before. Inside the house, the atmosphere felt unchanged. My partner sat on the couch pretending not to care that I had been gone for hours. The same tired expression, the same emotional distance, the same unspoken tension. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't start another argument. I simply walked in front of them and said quietly, "We need to talk, and this time, I want the truth." Their reaction, the way their eyes shifted, the way guilt flickered across their face, told me everything I needed to know. I didn't need an explanation. I didn't need excuses. The truth had already been living between us, silent and cold. "I'm going to take some time for myself," I said. My voice was calm, steady in a way that surprised even me. "I can't keep pretending everything is okay." They opened their mouth as if to defend themselves, but nothing came out. And that silence, for the first time, didn't hurt me. It freed me. I stepped back outside, closing the door behind me. The night felt different now, not comforting, but open, like a beginning instead of an ending. My phone buzzed. A message. I unlocked it, "Just making sure you got inside safely." From the taxi driver. A quiet smile touched my lips. Not because of attraction, but because someone, even a stranger, cared enough to check on me. Something my partner hadn't done in a long time. I typed back, "Thank you." I did. I leaned against the railing, breathing in the fresh night air, and for the first time in months, I felt something warm inside me. Hope. Not for someone else, but for myself. And in that soft, reflective moment, I thought of all the people who listen to stories like mine, who find comfort in them, who relate to the struggles and the small moments of strength. So I said it gently, as if speaking to someone standing right beside me. If you connect with my stories and want more like this, please subscribe to the channel. Your one subscribe truly inspires me to keep creating. I slipped my phone into my pocket, feeling lighter than I had in a long time. I didn't know exactly what my next step would be, or where this new chapter would lead, but for the first time, it was mine to choose. And that was enough. If this story touched you even a little, please subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive.